3, 2.
Well, as a busy CEO, there are many days when I'd love to clone myself. Coming up next on The Jeff Crilly Show, I'll introduce you to a man who can tell you how to do just that.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate for one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilly, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilly Show.
Well, how many of you can identify with the problem of having to be in 2 places at the same time? There just aren't enough hours in the day. My next guest, Bryon Morrison, he is the co-founder and CEO of Proxxy. He's going to teach us how to do just that. Bryon, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be here.
I think it's a brilliant idea. Will you kind of lay it out for us? What does your company do?
Yeah, so Proxxy is a remote chief of staff service, but really what we do, I think you nailed it in the beginning, we try and duplicate or clone great executives. So companies that are dealing with growth in small to medium-sized businesses, typically anywhere from 10 employees up to 500 is what we really focus on. And we see opportunities where we can help those CEOs by bringing in the right technology solutions, process change, but most importantly, by applying a human to that individual and helping them just basically save time every day.
Give me an example of a client that you helped. What did you do for them?
Sure. Well, they range from companies that, CEOs that say, look, I just need more time in the day. And so in some cases, we'll just come in, take over email, phone calls, calendar, the things that just really drain your time. But others, typically it's more strategic, where an individual, like one example I'm thinking of is a CEO that said, he was a young CEO, great business, and it was well funded. And he just told us, I'm worried about the confidence of my board. He said, we're doing really well, but I just don't feel like I'm connecting with them. He said, I feel like I'm at like a 40-50% confidence level. And so he said, I want to be at 80% plus. And so within 3 months, we took over the communications to the board and helped them with how do we form reporting, what should he be communicating, at what times, being more consistent. And then, within about 3 months, the board actually told him, hey, we can meet less frequently because you clearly have this under control. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's just one kind of an example.
No, it's wonderful. And you've gotten the attention of the media. We want to show a headline from the Dallas Morning News. Tell us about this article.
Yeah, it was great. We were talking with the Morning News about everything that was happening during COVID, and I just can't get over the amount of courage that is shown. We refer to these individuals as challenger executives because if you're in a small to medium-sized business going through what's happening today, you got some guts, and you have to think differently. And those companies that we work with, those were just 4 great examples of how they have decided to operate differently, think differently, and just have some great success during this time. And it's also a little story about us. When we put this together, it was before the pandemic. And one of the things that we have as a tenet in our business is no long-term contracts. And I have to admit that when everybody started locking down, I told my partners, I said, I think we may have made a major mistake. Because I thought it'd be one of those things that people would say, we got to cut everything. And we're very blessed. We've never lost a client.
You have a wonderful tool on your website, and we want to show this right now, where you can actually adjust the levers and figure out how much time you save. Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, it's just for the total ROI, and this is why we haven't lost any clients to date. You can go on this and you could look at how many meetings you have in a day, how many emails you deal with, how many strategic initiatives you're driving, the number of employees in your company, what your hourly value is to the company. Sometimes that's the place we start, is just understanding that. But when you go through this on our website, it'll tell you what the ROI will be. And on average, the return is 256% ROI is the average among all of our clients.
That's amazing. Do you run into the executive who's so busy they don't make time to be unbusy? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like they're constantly saying, I just don't have time. Or, I'll get around to your idea when I have more time. And you're like, no, this is what we do.
That's really funny you say that, because, that was kind of the origin story of Proxxy. I was, among other things, I was serving on boards of these companies, and, we'd sit down, we'd have these great board meetings, and, we'd come up with an idea, and the CEO goes, oh my God, that's one of the greatest ideas. We're going to do that. And then you come back a month or a quarter later, and you say, how did that thing go? And they go, I didn't have time. And so what I started realizing, and I spent my whole career in consulting and, working in the services industry, and what I started realizing is that if you don't give back time, an executive can't hear those ideas, and they certainly can't operationalize them. And so that's where I just felt like before you move into helping companies, and I mentor companies and work with them, if you don't have a way to free a CEO's mind, then they can't hear and absorb and do something with the information they're getting.
Yes.
So that's really where we start.
And when you look at maybe the great CEOs around the country, they've figured out a way to replicate themselves. I mean, Elon Musk can't be everywhere.
Right. It's funny that you say that, because those are large companies, right?
Yeah.
And I've worked with Fortune 500 companies for a long time in my career, and you meet those people and you go, my God, they're so effective. And then what you start to realize is there's a support system around them that will not let them fail. There are people, processes, tools that make them even more effective than they already are. And those are geniuses also.
Yes.
But for the SMB leader, the person who's running those companies from 10 to 50 people, they have the same needs, they just don't have access to them at the same level. They have plenty of people who want to tell them what to do and what they're not doing right. But you really have to have that servant leader standing next to them to say, I'm going to make sure that happens.
Yeah, and I think what you allow the CEO to do is concentrate on his or her brilliance. And his or her brilliance may not be checking emails or responding to emails or returning those phone calls. His or her brilliance may be in creating and innovating.
Yeah, we have companies that are CEOs that have, they've done it 6, 7, 8 times where they've had successful exits in their companies, but they recognize what they don't do well. And so having someone who can be that right hand that says, I already see what's coming, I know what the challenge is going to be, I'll make sure that I take care of it before we get hit by it.
So final thoughts, this is your camera right here. If you're talking to the CEO at home saying, I wonder if I need Bryon's help or not, how do you know when they need your help?
That's a great question. And so we make that really simple. We allow everybody to go through a 30-day period where in that 30-day period, we've got everything mapped out pretty well. So we'll take over email, calendar, the time sucks. And then that's in the first week. In the second week, we'll start to identify how we can really help you find efficiencies. And then in the third week, you introduce us to your executive team so that they can start to understand, what's possible. And then we'll come back with a plan that says, this is exactly what's possible. This is your stage of growth. This is what you're going to hit next. These are the things you should be considering. And so it's a really simple way for people to do it. No risk. It's 30 days that returns at minimum 20 hours back to you anyway.
Wow.
So if anything, it's a high ROI session just in 30 days.
Absolutely brilliant. Bryon Morrison, co-founder and CEO of Proxxy. We're going to put the website up to end this segment. RemoteChiefofStaff.com is the website. Go ahead and get a hold of Bryon for all of your efficiency needs.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jeff.